Ellavarikkum namaskaram. Greetings and wishes to all of you. Salams, namaste, shalom, sasrikar. And from Australia, as we say, warami in our indigenous First Nation language, and good day as well. So it's a privilege and honor to be here as a Malayali who's lived overseas last 25 years in the US and Australia. It's a privilege and honor to be back here, part of this amazing Huddle global event, which I would definitely rate with the vibrant, delegates that we have, the whole ecosystem here in action. Even yesterday evening, it was just phenomenal to see the buzz and the vibrance that this ecosystem has created and grown year by year. So congratulations and best wishes to the organizers, Kerala Startup Mission. And I thank them and all the ecosystem partners, all the Gov partners, all the investor group partners, and all the startup ecosystem here as well for the wonderful show here. So as we proceed with the session, as we kind of highlighted, this is about the global startup bridge that we are looking to deliberate here and discuss on opportunity, how global startup ecosystem across different nations, especially aligned nations, the global innovation network nations, can collaborate with the thriving Indian ecosystem to build a sustainable scale-up proposition, pathway, and a bridge as well. So that's what we're going to deliberate, and I'm really honored and privileged to have an esteemed panelist of Gov leaders who have their missions here in India and quite actively involved with the ecosystem across the nation as well. So again, on behalf of Kerala Startup Mission and the Huddle Global team, I want to warmly welcome Jonas, the Consul General from Switzerland, Hans, the Commercial Counsellor and Trade Commissioner from Austria, Tanapat Sangaroon, the Vice Consul, Commercial Affairs, Royal Thai Consulate, and Ms. Limor, Bletter-Deputy Consul General, Consulate General of Israel to South India. Welcome, I extend a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you again. As I highlighted, the background to this is India has emerged as a global startup, powerhouse, so to speak, with the 100 plus and growing number of unicorns, which has obviously caught the attention of the global scale-up and startup ecosystem, but also the huge market drivers in spite of COVID and coming beyond COVID, the growth rate that India has seen becoming an economic powerhouse, but also its global profile politically and through their global multilateralism positioning, and including the forthcoming leadership and presidency of G20 summit, that presents India in a different league on its own. And hence, all the global innovation ecosystem, including Australia that I represent, are looking at India on how we can closely bridge and build this sustainable scale-up pathway model. So that's kind of what the whole theme of this conversation is going to be. And before we kick off on the collaboration part, I would like to hear from all the panelists in their respective ecosystem in the nation. How is it the scale-ups are operating? What are the aspirations and some case studies of the scale-ups who have gone into other countries as well? So over to you, Jonas.
Thank you, Irfan. Good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here. Let me say a word first about Swissnex in India and then about Switzerland to help contextualize it. So you see that my role is Consul General, but I'm also CEO of Swissnex in India, and Swissnex is one of 6 science and technology consulates that Switzerland has around the world, and they're based in some of the world's most thriving innovation scenes. So I am physically based in Bangalore. And we strive at Swissnex to accelerate positive transformation at the frontiers of knowledge as one Swissnex community. So working together between our countries, between the 6 locations to make a positive impact. Switzerland is a small landlocked country that has carved a path towards success by investing in people's brains. And the success of the Swiss economy is dependent upon being able to do things that have a high value add on the international market. So internationalization is in the DNA of the country. At the same time, Switzerland is a relatively conservative country. We're in the heart of Europe, but we're not part of the European Union, for example. And so we're a land of contradictions. Now, having set that context, Switzerland also ranks #1 in the World Innovation Index that the World Intellectual Property Organization puts out every year, and has been so for the past 12 years. That is because there's a very high investment in R&D, among the highest in percentage of GDP across the earth. And about 2/3 of that comes from the private sector and only 1/3 from the public sector. And then, of course, there's an education system that works really, really well. And what the Swiss education system has managed to excel at, and I would say the Austrian one too, is to have a dual education system. And in Switzerland, about 70% of youth go pursue an apprenticeship, which means that they get practical vocational training that, again, translates into having a talent base that is very, very highly skilled. At the academic level, Swiss universities are very, very good at translating the knowledge that is generated in the labs to the market, and that manifests mostly by way of startups and new companies. And of course, then these startups, because the Swiss market is such a small one, have to look to internationalize. And in that sense, the whole system is geared up for them to get started in Switzerland, but then immediately look beyond Switzerland. And I'll say a little bit more about why they are starting more and more to look at India. But not everything is perfect in Switzerland. And we have Limor here, who represents Israel. And I can just make a quick comparison between our two countries. We have about the same population size, yet Israel has about 7 times more investment in startups than Switzerland, and about 3 times more unicorns than Switzerland. And that is in large part because in Israel there is much more corporate support, corporate investment into startups. The government also invests more heavily. There's a relatively different culture around failure. Israel celebrates failure. In Switzerland, there's still a very strong stigma around failure. And lastly, successful startups in Israel are known to reinvest in the startup ecosystem. That is not yet the case in Switzerland. So room to go, room to improve, and room to learn from all the countries represented here.
Jonas, I think there's already a global collaboration in play now with Switzerland, Israel, and India in the conversation. I think you rightly said there's a lot happening, and Israel's been having pioneering efforts, and I'm look forward to hearing more from Limor as well. So Hans, over to you. Austria has again been quite vibrant in terms of scaling up, and already with India as well, stronger collaboration. So you want to share some insights about the ecosystem there?
Well, good morning to everybody. It's a pleasure being here, and I was here the full day yesterday, and must say it's really amazing being here, and I learned a lot. Well, talking about the ecosystem in Austria, it's talking about Austrian wine. It's top quality, it's not big in size, and nobody knows about it. So we have a kind of a marketing problem, and would say it's like an ecosystem niche market. So Austria is very strong, like Switzerland and Israel, in research development, in research. So we have many spin-offs from universities, from companies, and 3/4 of Austrian startups consider themselves as green startups, so startups with green technologies. Of course, other areas. And interestingly, 40% of the startups in Austria have foreign-born founders. So it's a quite developed ecosystem, and 30% are women. So it's a quite developed ecosystem. And like in Kerala, each province has its own system, support. So you get a lot of government support. The seed financing is quite developed. And the failure rate is relatively low. We have the same like Switzerland. Failing is not well seen in society. So if you're part of the system, the failure quote is quite low, because you get the support from government, chamber. So when you're a startup, you also automatically, you're part of the Austrian Federal Chamber. So I come from the chamber. So for example, you have access to all Austrian trade commissioners. We have a trade commissioner in Israel, for example, in Switzerland, in Bern, in Los Angeles, in Japan, all over the world. We have 110 offices. and for each and every country, one trade commissioner is responsible. So when you have a startup in Austria, immediately you get access all over the world free of cost. So it's quite developed, and as I said, it's a quite small, nice, developed ecosystem there.
I think that's a vibrant, thriving ecosystem, and you touched on some of the green focus, sustainable focus startup approach, but also a cue that I got stronger collaboration with the business chambers and also the universities as well, which is a key part of the ecosystem there. Thank you, and we'll probably explore more specifically on the India opportunity as well shortly. Over to Tanapat. Can you share more insights on the Thailand startup ecosystem? How does that look like, and how are they focused on scaling up into other countries and especially within Asia?
Thank you very much. Thailand is a developing country, so we are not very advanced in technology innovation, but we are developing this human development and innovation and technology. In Thailand, we have Thailand Science Park under the Ministry of Education and Research and Development. Under the Thailand Science Park, there are many sub-sectors, in particular technology field. And they will also support foreigners, foreign startups, and who are interested to collaborate with Thai startups in Thailand. For example, there are Food Innopolis startup center under this Thailand Science Park. I actually at the Thailand Consulate, we collaborate KSM with Food Innopolis in under Science Park. So we have, for example, in last September, we have a webinar. KSM select 10 food startup from KSM, from Kerala, and we exchange knowledge, exchange idea, and possible explore collaboration with 10 startups under the Food Innopolis. This is an example of how we could collaborate between two countries, selecting some of sub-sector that we are not very much advanced, and if we exchange strengths, this is one of examples.
I think stronger collaboration within the East Asia, especially ecosystem like Singapore and Malaysia thriving, and having Thailand as well part of this Southeast Asia corridor will be a great opportunity for us to explore with India.
Yes, sir. Thailand is like a gateway of the ASEAN Southeast Asian nation, especially the mainland ASEAN. CLMVT, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thai, and Southern China, which is quite big. So this is a gateway. Actually, Thailand is your backyard. So anybody could go for, at least for tourism. Yes. Any who visit Thailand? Yes. I think one of you will visit Thailand one day. So apart from the tourism activity, startup economic activities.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanapat. Over to you, Limor. If you can share insights of one of the best startup ecosystem that you have in Israel. But again, what really underpins and drives this whole scaling up, aspirations of the startup ecosystem there?
So first of all, thank you very much for having me here. I think Jonas did some very nice job for me here today, so thank you for that and for the good words. I was also looking at the data and what he said, and I have to admit that a lot of what was said by him is very similar in Israel for the perspective of looking globally, because in Israel as well, over 50% of the export of Israel is actually high-tech export, which is a huge number. And what drives, there are many things driving, of course, the Israeli startup scene and ecosystem. To begin with is the issue of innovation, which is obviously a very, it's something inherent to Israeli culture, especially in the Israeli society, of course. And this startup and high-tech ecosystem is driven by some unique circumstances that we have very short distances. It's a very, very small country, small population, very dense areas. So all the key players that are actually a main part of the ecosystems are well connected. The academia, the business, the industries, everything is very near, and people know one another, and there's good networking going on. So, and this connectivity actually allows for a lot of things to happen and grow. Of course, in the past, the government has been investing a lot in R&D. Nowadays, what we see is that this has been significantly less, and we do see actually that although the government has been helpful, but in recent years, the R&D investments heavily rely on private sector actually, which is a good indicator for some things. For example, that the high demand for Israeli technology, and actually like that this market brings results because people keep bringing in money. And except for that, so of course, the key for growth is keep being innovative and finding solutions, especially like for disruptive technologies. These are things that I think are very important, and when Israel is looking forward, and I think probably a lot of the countries, they're looking for these kind of technologies that are going to be the next thing. And I think Israel has a lot to offer, and also on other important issues now, very important issues that we're talking about, like climate change, sustainability, also very relevant things for India, because if we look at industries of this kind of area, if you see the most, let's say the tech climate, we have the most in the industries for tech climate, the most companies we have are actually in smart agri-tech companies, which is very relevant for India and for the cooperation that we have here in India. And of course, we have a lot to do still, and to keep growing and see how we keep it sustainable. It's a task, obviously.
Thank you, Limor. I think always, as I've been following the Israeli ecosystem for nearly 8 to 10 years, and always you've had a strong focus, and that's part of the whole DNA. Early stage itself, looking at scale-up aspiration and working with various countries globally. So that's great to know, and we'll explore further during the course of this discussion. Jonas, if I can come to you about the core theme of today's discussion, how do you see India as a global scale-up destination, a partner which gives you not only access to Indian market, but also helps, use India as a launchpad to serve as a global market as well, and as a global powerhouse, yeah. How do you see India as a scale-up destination, and perhaps, programs like soft landing programs with India, how do you see that, in your radar?
The good news for me is that I can't think of a better country to be in to do what I do at the moment. And of course, we've been in India since 2010 as Swissnex, and we have recognized the importance of India, but there is a gap. Because when I'm back in Switzerland talking about India, the perception of India is not the same that I have here, experiencing the reality day in and day out. And so one of the bigger challenges that we face is bridging that gap and telling the story of India in a way that the Switzerland that wants to engage with the United States, with Israel, with the European neighbors, with China even up until rather recently, looks at India in the same way. Now, being here and seeing that, I know the Indian ecosystem is not a maturing one, it's a mature one. It's the third largest one, and it is a powerhouse in and of its own rights. And what we're starting to see with the startups that we're working with is that they're no longer just looking at India as a market, but India is now also a tech and product development space. So they're coming to advance their innovations and to embed important upstream elements of their technologies in the Indian context, and not just to deploy them. I think that is a pretty systemic shift that we're very excited to see, because that just means that the potential is quite substantial. So coming back again to the challenge that we face then, it is clear that we want to take our partnership with India from this level to this level. So what needs to change is our approach. The Swiss approach to India, and that is part of our mission. And I am 1 year into my 4-year tenure, and that is the focus of what we're trying to achieve. So we need to align and harmonize a lot more whatever we do, whether it's our programs and activities that support startups or that support research at the intersection of industry and academia, so that it becomes more cohesive and addresses a point that Limor made, which is there are some pretty fundamental global challenges that we face collectively, and it is only through collaboration that we can accelerate our path towards ensuring a livable future on spaceship Earth, and that's what drives us.
Sure. Thanks, Jonas. I think what I hear is there's obviously interest and huge potential, need for awareness and literacy about Indian startup ecosystem, that needs to be bridged, but more so, on global challenges as well. There is an opportunity for a global collaboration here with leveraging India as also the engine to drive tech innovation as well, and leverage the whole resource skilled talent pool that we have in India as well. So that's a key message I'm hearing. Thank you, Hans. Over to you if you want to share, from Austria's perspective, India as a scale-up destination and how we can take that forward.
Well, the potential is definitely there. I mean, last year, by Choose, I hope I pronounce it correctly, by Choose, the learning platform, they purchased an Austrian learning platform worth $100 million. So it shows there is potential for cooperation and for cooperation. And we as Trade Commission, we started seriously this year focusing on this market. We have in Austria what we call a global incubator network. We want to include India in this program. It's especially going to Asia. Then we have an innovation officer. We have, as I said, 110 offices all over the world, and we only have 12 innovation officers, and one is in India. And the idea is showing the Austrian business community about the future trends, and they specialized in startups and technology. And I would like to share the experience we had this year. I must say we started as a startup, working with startups. So we wanted to bring a business delegation from India to Austria this March, and we failed. We had no results, nobody wanted to go. And then we said, okay, as a startup, we won't give up, and let's try again in September. And then finally we had 130 startups showing interest, and finally 40 persons went to Austria. And for me it was one of the best experiences. We had startups all over India. It was a really Indian delegation from Assam, from Chhattisgarh, from Chandigarh, from Jodhpur, from Kerala, South India, all over India, this delegation. I must say I was impressed, very smart, very to the point, very focused. And finally we saw we want to promote, I mean, it was, and I must say it was not a sector specific, it was just the overall delegation. So all forms of cooperations are possible. First of all, we detected you could use Austria as a hub for the European Union, because some of the startups had already relations, but mostly with English-speaking countries, like US, or Israel, or Australia, but not with Austria. And this is our job to make these connections. And we said, European Union is a common market, but it's not a common culture. So where do you start? And the German-speaking market actually is the largest market within the European Union. So Austria could be interesting hub as a test market for the German-speaking market and going to further other markets. And then as I said before, many Austrian companies have technologies, they want to go abroad, but they're not so internationally connected. So this is a good relationship we can start. And then I must say one member of the delegation was Vishnu Nigaraj from CSL. And he was also very surprised, and he said it was like an eye-opener. And then he invited me coming here. So now, as I said, we are building up this relation. And for me, it's basically, you see, we have a lot of Austrian companies who had bad experience, sometimes with Indian companies, because they just Googled and found a partner online. And still, and everything is on the internet, for finding real partners, you must meet personally. And I think this is the function of this Congress, of the seminar. You first of all, information, and then meeting the right partners. And for that, you must participate in these forums. And as I said, we want to develop that and work on that further.
Thank you. You shared some great insights as well. But particularly, I want to pick that there's a focus on looking at beyond the tier 1 cities as well. So you touched on Jodhpur and some of the other tier 2, tier 3 cities as well, where there's a lot of innovation and opportunity there to leverage as well.
I think this is really a new era we're entering, because normally Austria, 50% of exports is technology, machinery. And now we see more and more, doing a small company in a village in Austria we never heard of, doing business with a village somewhere in Rajasthan we never heard of. And this works. And this is the future of that. And as I said, we had people from Assam, from Chhattisgarh, and these are not the regions we traditionally did business for. And this is really opening up with this new startup business which makes it possible.
Great to know that. And also you touched on the reverse exchange to cater to the German-speaking market with Australia as kind of an enabler.
And one focus, as I said, we are strong in seed money, but we are not strong in Austria for scaling up. So we are not a big, we are like Switzerland, we are very conservative, and all this scaling up finance is not well developed. Actually, we bring delegations to Israel, we bring delegations to Silicon Valley looking for investors and so on. And this could be interesting for Indian startups investing there. And one focus, and I think the same for other countries, it's relatively easy for Indian company or foreign companies setting up a company in Austria. You just need a local partner there, a corporation. You don't have to spend a lot of money, just 1,000-2,000 euros, and then have full access to this ecosystem there. And I think this is quite interesting.
That's great. Thank you. Tanapat, over to you about how do you see from a Thailand ecosystem perspective? You already got some programs underway with Kerala Startup Mission and others as well. How do you see India as your scale-up destination where you can curate more structured programs and outcomes as well for your scale-ups?
Yes, thank you, sir. Of course, India will be one of the hub, the powerhouse of the startup, especially Kerala, I think. To make it sustainable, I think each state in India should focus on their strengths and their resources, their capability, specific capability. For example, in Kerala, I think one of the key capability is, apart from the human development, is the link to the Middle East and connection to the Middle East countries. So halal food, food production, seafood, herbs, fruits, and everything is one of the food sector would be the key to fulfill the food security in the Middle East. So I think India would be the hub for the startup, and to make it sustainable, we have to focus on the key strengths in each state. In Karnataka, for example, IT, Internet of Things, and wearable device, electronics would be the key focus, apart from the electronics in machinery, in vehicles. And in Goa, for example, which is quite more focusing on hospitality sector, maybe healthcare and medical service, including beauty service, could be one of the key focus. So to make it sustainable for India, I think we have to be focused, And the key factor that could enhance India capability to be the hub, I think, is to adjust the legal conditions, especially for the tax exemption for the capital gains tax, to enhance, to attract the foreign and also homegrown investor and startup to invest more. So it will be stimulate to make the stimulus for the startup in India and internationalization of them. So.
Yeah, great insights there. You touched on some key sectors as well from Thailand perspective. Definitely, I want to note the food agri sector. You touched on the services as well, healthcare, hospitality sector, the tourism wellness as well. So definitely, Kerala is a great destination to not only harbor that, do the soft landing, but also help scale into servicing Middle East and other markets. So you shared some key insights there. We look forward to hearing more from you on that. Limor, if I can invite you to share. I mean, you've been, again, one of the pioneering nation working with, India way back, 10 years back, I suppose, more than 10 years, actively working, especially with the ag tech sector. You've been pioneering quite a bit. And that's collaboration with India has been forefront there. Of course, every startup ecosystem, globally has had always aspirations of Silicon Valley, but you were one of the pioneers looking at India. So how do you see now that there is a broader interest from global countries about India as their scale-up destination? How do you see Israel to really ramp up and accelerate further on that front?
So, again, thank you for the kind words. And Israel is indeed looking at India as a very important player, and there's huge still things that can be done with collaborations between Israel and India. And what we see is that we have some programs already that are that invest different fields, but you have the Center of Excellence for Agriculture that have been going on, and there is a fund for mutual research, and that I will talk about more later, I think. But so there's a huge opportunity here for, as previous speaker said, to connect between the ecosystems. When you bring people together and you talk about the most pressing issues we have today, so that is the way. And certainly there are some programs that we see that are going on, and the opportunity here is that Israel and India, they have some similarities, but they're like complementary industries, because to make something in Israel, for example, it's more expensive, but here what happens is you can come and you need the local partner, and you need the knowledge and the adaptation for the local market, and there are here entrepreneurs that can do that and push that forward. So as has been said by Mr. Hans-Joerg, that you find the local partner and then you can take it forward. So certainly there are things to be done in that field. And again, we have some programs already connecting the ecosystem, the startup systems, and we do see that when you make such introductions, it will take time. It's not something that you can see in the immediate time frame, but for the long run, it can be very fruitful for both countries. So certainly, it's something that Israel takes very much in consideration, and it's high on the agenda.
Yeah, thank you, Maura. I think you touched on the key, having the right partners here, matched in terms of whether it's manufacturing partner or scale-up partner here, but having that right match here, not only supporting growth within this market, but also to service other markets as well. And you've been from Israel, you've been having pioneering efforts there. Now we will come back for one more question, but also we'll be shortly opening to the floor as well to take 2 or 3 questions in a short while. So I'll just probably pose a last quick question and then open to the floor if you want to engage in any of the interactive questions. Just if I may just open to any one of you to share any case studies. I mean, our thinking is that we want to set up a global scale-up hub with soft landing programs across this Indian ecosystem. Of course, Kerala Startup Mission being one of the key enablers and host landing pad. Where we have structured programs like once in 2 cohorts a year, small set of cohorts of scale-ups we could host over a 3 to 6 months program. Do you see this as practical, and what sort of mandate that you see as leading the mission of your country in India? Do you have your government mandate to potentially facilitate some of that, structured programs more regularly?
Maybe I can start. We do have a number of structured programs. The focus for us, when it comes to startups, it's market discovery, market validation, and then market entry. Those are sort of the 3 layers that to us make sense to access. And I can tell you the case study of a startup called SoHitech. They have developed an artificial tree called ARB that uses sunlight and water to produce hydrogen on site. In 2016, they were part of a cohort program that we've been running for 9 years called AIT, the Academia Industry Training. And this is the only cohort program that we run where we have 10 Swiss startups and 10 Indian startups that do a cohort program 1 week here, 1 week there, and then a lot of offline work in between. And what they discovered in 2016 is that the potential and the interest in green hydrogen in India is at a substantive enough level that they came back in 2019 and did a market validation. In their market validation, they engaged with energy companies. They realized that they need to figure out how to access the supply chain, and they came back this year in 2022 for the market entry camp, and this year they were able to achieve the supply chain partnerships that now will allow them to deploy the ARB and hopefully scale it. Let me use this example to reflect on the experience. In my view, one of the big challenges with the international bridge programs is they don't scale. To me, it only makes sense to work with startups in a cohort format when you're sort of at the early stage, which is the discovery stage. As soon as you go into validation, the validation is so specific to the product, to the technology of the individual startup, that it's really hard to bundle that in a cohort feel, and the more you bundle it, the less depth you can give to the program. And then when you go to market entry, it's just tailor-made, boutique-like approach. So it's like an inverted funnel, if you will, and we have to design and offer entry points across these levels. But true to our Swiss nature, we do not want to become victims of our success. So what I said earlier, that we need to get Switzerland to understand India and look at India in a different way. We don't want to be overwhelmed with requests, because our capacity to really have an impact with the startups is limited by the bandwidth that we have. And this case study is perfect because from 2016 to 2022, that's 6 years of sustained engagement with one startup.
Wow, that's amazing insights there. I think you touched on really well the whole funnel, where there's a different level of engagement. You want to spark off that India discovery, market awareness, early stage, but as they look at scaling the market entry, a smaller cohort, and then into the validation as well, a very smaller cohort, which can be matched with the right kind of ecosystem here. So that's very good insights you shared, and building that structured program and even backing those scale-ups right through the journey, not like a one-off, is a key to success and sustainability of that program. So that's great insight shared. Hans, if you want to share any thoughts on some of the structured programs that we could do.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we just started from head of with a new program all over the world. We want to connect the brilliant minds in different technology areas. So just starting that, creating networks. Then, as I mentioned before, we want to become India part of our global incubator network. We're in touch with them, and they said we should start from bottom to top. So they want to create, as I said before, establish that network. So I already officially invited Startup Mission Kerala to bring a delegation to Austria. We have several events, for example, now, and as I said, we have especially different niche markets. For example, now, end of February, we have a high-tech event called SEO Projects. So this is for all kinds of technologies for disabled persons. So anybody of you most come, get in touch with me and we'll bring you there. Then mid of March, there is a startup event in Salzburg. They will make a special Indian delegation there, special treatment for India. Then immediately afterwards, they call it Skinovation, this in Innsbruck. So because it's winter and snow, it will be a startup meeting for skiers. But even if you're not a skier, you can participate using the cable cars and meeting there. And there's not only skiing, there's also after skiing, after ski networking. So, and one very important event is in the first week of June. We have Vienna Up. This is the top startup meeting in Austria, and of course, you all invited participating there. So as I said, we want to start in grassroots, bringing people together, and then formalizing more these official programs.
Yeah, I think, as you shared, you've already got programs underway, but yeah, we look forward to having more structured, regular cohorts as well, where we can here facilitate that market connection validation, but also the right partners as well, and vice versa, curate programs to Austria as well for those select cohorts as well. So looking forward to that. Thank you. Tanapat, if you want to share any insights on any structured program that's in your mandate, as part of your mission in India?
So
And
thank
any
you.
funding or any grants that you're looking at as well?
Okay. Last year, one of the cases that we try to bridge Indian startups in food sector again with Thai CVC, Corporate Venture Capital in Thailand, one of the biggest company in stock exchange in Thailand. And the process that we did, which is a lesson for us, is that we asked the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry, to choose the capable startups who are ready to connect with Thai manufacturer. And they list for about almost 100 startups, their business profile, sent to them, to that big corporation in Thailand. And the company select only 6 of them. And we did the pitching for the fundraising. The problem is that the selection is not based on a good criteria. So we didn't set the Thai criteria first. So it's quite it's broad criteria. So we are not focusing on, for example, nutraceutical sector or the medical foods, for example. So we could make it more specific for the matchmaking for the fundraising. So this lesson made us to realize that in the next program for bridging with Indian startup, we have to firstly we have to base on the demand in Thailand. So we have to ask the CVC, the Corporate Venture Capital, to identify the needs, the pain points, or the target customers that they are looking for first, and then we try to select the specific startups that can fulfill their needs. So this is the key. We have to be demand-driven selection process. And the second factor that I learned from last year is that apart from the consulate ourselves to be the connector, we could connect the connector between KSM and Food Innopolis Institute in the Thailand Science Park. So they own themselves, they know the demand, they know the gap, the market gap, the target gap. So they can exchange, and later they can select the specific startup to be matchmaking with the partners. So the second one, I think I would highlight the factor that we could connect the linker between the incubator, accelerator, and accelerator in another country. They could work by themselves in the long run, sustainable.
Well, if I can just quickly, thank you, Tanapat. If I can get Limor to comment quickly on any structured program that you are looking at and a mandate that you have, and we'll open the floor for questions here.
Yes, so very briefly, what we have currently going on. So the past few years, as I mentioned, there's the mutual fund that it's a government, both governments put money for collaborations between Indian and Israeli companies for specific sectors that they have identified that these kind of collaborations should happen. And also, we have, for the past 2 years, we have been doing, because we are based in Bangalore, so the Center for Cellular and Molecular Research is CCAMP. They are in collaboration with us, where we do a bridge for innovation, bringing Israeli and Indian startups together. After we identify some of the key issues and they can identify startups, we try to connect startups together and see what things this will lead to. And we also have some programs that we are aiming to do for 2023, meeting up between entrepreneurs, Indian and Israelis. But that's, and of course, hopefully much more to come.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, coming into the G20 period as well, there'll be a lot more traction and opportunities as well. So I might open to the floor for quick 2 or 3 questions. There's one gentleman there. If you can quickly introduce yourself and just to the point on the
hi.
question, please.
My name is Hafiz. So the question to the panel is, there seems to be a theme of deglobalization going on these days, especially the recent US chip ban towards China. And what I've heard was like the French President Macron, he said, you risk dividing the world into competing blocks. So is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? That's my question.
That it wasn't clear for, can you just repeat the question there?
Yeah, there seems to be a theme of deglobalization going on these days.
Deglobalization, okay.
Yeah, and the recent chip ban towards China, and what I was saying was French President Macron, he said, you risk dividing the world into competing blocks. So is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? That's my question.
So I think what they're trying to say here is a bit more of a political landscape, I guess, more a deglobalization, more multilateralism, having blocks of countries, to collaborate, whether it's Quad we have or AUKUS we have with Australia. So similar blocks, is that a trend, a good thing or bad thing?
I mean, in politics, there's no good or bad, but that's just developments. But it's a fact. I mean, we see it now clearly, for example, of India. We had last year, we had on both sides a record of 1,000 million trade volume. And this year, our exports were 15% more, but our imports from India are 30% more. So if it continues, we're going to have a trade gap. And as you know, India established itself as an alternative to India. And at the same time, you're building routes, new logistic routes to Moscow, this north-south transport corridor and so on. Yeah, I mean, it's a fact at the moment. And in Europe, especially, we have this discussion on sustainable supply chain. We had this experience after COVID, and that very serious breaks in the supply chain. And I think in Europe, generally, we look more and more for reliable partners, sustainable partners you can rely on, and also with green technology partners. Just to give an example, Germany just will start now 1st of January with the new supply chain law. So you must prove that all your suppliers have manufacturing under certain conditions, especially human rights conditions. And this is a fact, this will become more and more stronger. We have, for example, in food, organic foods, sustainability, green technology. So this will be the trend in the future. And of course, and there we're looking for our partners, definitely.
The message there is building sustainable supply chain, options and opportunities globally, and post-COVID, especially building that resilience and that sustainable supply chain is the key driver. So there's no right or wrong thing, as long as there's sustainable supply chain options. We have time for one more question, I'm told, and that will be...
Hi everyone, my name is Jolly. I have an elder care startup based out of Kerala. So my question is especially to Jonas, Hans and Limor. So aging population is getting higher in Kerala as well, and what my understanding is especially in Austria and European countries, the similar I think trend, right? So how can you extend support in terms of getting some of the best practices and collaborating to make a difference to the elder community in Kerala, especially on dementia research or some of the challenges this elder population is facing.
So focused on aging population, a sector to support them. What are the initiatives or what are the opportunities to work with Kerala or Indian ecosystem as well?
On our side, we just launched the newest Swissnex in the network, has opened last year in Osaka, and the big focus for Swissnex in Japan is going to be to deal with the theme of aging, because that is one of the most pressing challenges that the Japanese society faces. And so the smart thing to do would be to look at who are the players that are doing the things that are most advanced and most intriguing and relevant. So if you wanted to connect with Switzerland on this, I would suggest a rerouting via Japan. But here in India, next year we will do a studio on digital self-determination and disability. How do people with physical disabilities gain more agency over their digital persona? And in looking at the disability space, what is really interesting is that there's a close nexus between the disability space and an aging population, because the use of gadgets and technology and devices, the limitations that people with physical disabilities face are ones that an aging population may face, and there's a clear link there. So it's looking for these smart ways to link a topic like aging population in this case with something that on paper is unrelated, but once you look deeper, there's a clear connection.
Yeah. Limor, you want to highlight?
I just wanted to say, first of all, that it's a dual problem, because on the one hand, you have technology moving forward and allowing some of the solution for these kind of problems. On the other hand, an aging population would be less prone to use technology, so it might have difficulties, but the solution might come from there. So obviously, Israel has a lot of solution in the fields of medtech, and I would love to afterwards maybe look for. I'm sure there are some people already working on these kind of issues, but our goal is, again, if we have any technology in Israel, sometimes we would not be able to try and test our technologies because it's such small countries, and India is the best way sometimes to test and do things together. So for us, all these kind of things are very, very interesting. And as Jonas said, and anyone here that is interested or having any collaboration in not only these fields, we are always happy to hear whatever you have to suggest, and you're more than welcome to connect with our consulate or with our trade office in Bangalore. And so certainly, I think the foreign countries has a lot of advantages in helping some such problems, and especially where not always we have the opportunity to see and test these technologies in our own country. So India would be a better way, and also in the process we can help these kind of things.
Sure, thank you. And I think, as Limor mentioned, India is a great market to collaborate, validate, and do the clinical trials and all, and operate at scale as well. Thank you. Hans, you want to add a quick point?
Just quickly, I mean, in Europe we don't have only aging problem, we have a workforce problem. The young people nowadays don't want to, don't want to work, they don't want to come back from home office. So we have a serious issues, companies closing down because they don't find personnel. And I mean, we have programs now, we have nurseries from Kerala going to Austria. But I think it's, of course, in some service areas you need it. But I think in the tech areas, I think we should think in the future of new models. You know, last week I had a young guy, he's a computer guy, he's a software guy. He went to Germany, he gets a half-year work visa for looking for a job there. And I told him, this is not a solution. You know, it's not so funny emigrate. You lose your friends, you lose your culture, you go in another environment. It's not funny working there. And there I think, especially in this tech area, in these areas you are all working, there we must find new solutions. Outsourcing, because we all sit in front of a computer. It doesn't matter if you're here or in Europe. And there we must find new models. And I think that's the idea, these global networks, finding new cooperation models with all these countries.
So finding new cooperation models and to help validate and scale there. Thank you for those insights. We'll wrap it up on that note. I know I've got the nudge here, but the key messages we are hearing is, including I can speak for Australia, we are very actively interested in collaborating with India as a global scale-up destination. We're going to be working on some global scale-up hub project across India as well, where Kerala Startup Mission will play a key role, and the startups and the ecosystem partners here, including the investor groups, will play a key role as we take this India market opportunity literacy to global countries, because that's one of the things which clearly lacks even in Australia, on how this thriving ecosystem can really help build sustainable models for ecosystems there in our respective international countries as well. And also working through those structured programs, 3 to 6 months cohort of soft landing, and also scale up exchanges as well is a key message. But also a key message we heard is focusing on those niche sectors will give us traction as well and benefit for both the ecosystems. On that note, I'll wrap up the session, and I thank individually all of you for your insights, and look forward to collaborating globally with India to build a sustainable global innovation ecosystem where we can together look at global unicorns hosted out of India and creating an innovation success story to make it sustainable for the future and for the global economy as well. Thank you. On that note, a round of applause to all the panelists.
Thank you
please.
so much.